Good morning, my Teaserking family. How is everybody today? I am fine. It's Monday. Gold's back to 2,900. Silver's 32.31. So, all you worried about 28.80 and down, don't worry about it. And just a second. So, people don't understand it. Hey, Pat, good morning. Too bad your Swiss gold refiners declared there is a shortage and are limiting gold bars in production. Well, the price will be zooming because basically China's bought it all, right? And Russia, the BRICS countries basically bought it. And they're all running out. So this is like the tickets to the Super Bowl, right? They first sell they have 70,000 in the stadium, they sell them. And then, but wait a minute, the demand was more than 70,000. Therefore, people will now buy on the secondary market because they've run out of seats to sell from the from the stadium, right? That's what happens when you have demand for 140,000 but only tickets for 70. So once you sell out the first 70 at face value, the secondary market then pays more for them because they have to have them. But if I've paid $2,000, what's wrong with Sophie? If I paid, $1,000 for the ticket, I'm not going to let it go for under 1,000, right? So I'm going to let it go for 2,000. So if you understand that, what's really happening is we're back on this. So you have so many tickets, but okay. So this is price, but we can do it demand also. The demand is up here, and the supply is here. So we're going to do two different hands. Demand, supply, which means that the price is up. They're willing to pay this much for the tickets, and the tickets come out at this much. So what you really should do if you're hosting the Super Bowl is raise your price to meet the demand of the other people that buy the secondary market. So so it's similar with gold, right? We will pay this much for gold, but the price is here. So even when you sold it, but the price is here. And if we do a demand supply hands, the demand's up here and the supply's down here. So that means price needs to come up to here. But because the demand's so high, we've got so here's demand, here's supply. You can see the demand's way over supply. So A, the price is too low, and B, they've run out, which means the price will explode because the demand still wants the gold at this price, and they will take it there. So that's the problem. So what Pat's saying is the demand has exceeded the supply of gold, and they don't have any more gold bars for production. So that is a problem. It's not a problem. It shows you how weak the price is. It shows you a market where the demand's higher than the supply. So price should be higher, which is why people are buying it hands over fist, because the price is much higher. The price is much lower than what the people will pay and the demand. So you have all these refineries. Now, part of it is stuff coming back to America that needs to go from 400 ounce UK to 100 ounce US. Is that part of it? Well, I don't know, because they would get the 400K bar. So they get the UK bar of 400K, and then they'd have supply to make 4 100 ounce things. So that's not it. It's just too much demand over supply. Price is fixed way too low, same as silver. I'm surprised they're not running out of silver also, Pat. So with that said, we can see the problem. This is why we buy the shit out of gold, because if the demand is higher than the supply, the price must go up to equal the demand. So if everybody wants oranges and you don't have any, the demand's there, you need to get more oranges in, or you weren't selling your oranges for high enough value. In this case, the gold, obviously the demand's out. There's great demand that has to push. If the demand's here, that means the price is here. Why is the supply's only this? Why is the price so low? The price has to come up to demand. That's what quells demand. If you started making gold 20,000 an ounce, then the demand would, if you did that, the demand would swelter. Like, let's say you made it 20,000 an ounce. Well, people can't afford 20,000 an ounce. So that would level it off. The demand would go down. But at this price, the demand, they're all laughing, 2,900. And you got JP Morgan keeping that price down, but it's broken if they don't have any gold to do it. Comex must close their doors because they can't do derivatives without any gold. They have to have a little bit of gold. They have to have that old 4 ounces to do it. So it's really a fuck system, we know. But for us who have already bought the gold, it's a great sign, because now they have to raise price to try to settle the excuse me. So let's put it this way. Pat says 2 major refiners declared there is a shortage and are limiting gold bars production. How do they get more gold? All right. So we're running a restaurant and we're cooking ribs. We run out of ribs because everybody's ordering them. Well, what do? We got to get more ribs in, but we might have to pay more for them. So Swiss can get gold, but they have to pay more, which is going to knock the price up because I'm willing to sell my gold, but not at this ridiculously low price of 2,900 or 3,000. Put a zero behind it, 29,000. Yeah, I give you a few ounces of gold, but not at 2,900. And that's what happened. So that's why you need a higher price. So Switzerland can buy the bars. They're there, but not at this price. So that should raise the price based on you've run out of supply. So like in anything, tennis rackets, golf clubs, you'd have to get more. Now, most things you can make, shoes, tennis rackets, golf clubs, you'll make more if you can get the steel and the titanium, whatever you use to make golf clubs and tennis rackets or shoes and socks. But you can't do it in gold. You have to pay more because now everybody's got the gold. So now you got to pay more to get people to release their gold because people aren't going to release their gold. So London's out. Canada never had it. The US doesn't have it. It's all going to derivatives. So good point, Pat. So the price should be really going to the moon now based on this information. Because they need more supply. You only have 200,000 tons to start with, and most of it's in China, Russia, and India's hands already, and the BRICS countries. So people are just walking along thinking there's more gold, or is it? Unless China and Russia give it up, and they're only going to give it up at 20,000 an ounce, not at this shit. Now, how does this affect things? Well, this will definitely cause, we already have a recession in the US. This will snow into depression. Our money will be worthless because you'll need so much money to buy the gold. And people will just start using gold because now it's rare. It's gone. You can't get any more. Now, I don't know how many refineries there are. 2 major Swiss. Are there 5? Are there 10? Are there only 2? Well, maybe we can Google it. Let's Google. Boy, I got some strange on my FX. Okay, so how many, let's just say Swiss refineries? How many Swiss gold refineries are there? According to more sources, Switzerland has 4 major gold refineries, which are considered among the largest in the world. Velcambi, Metalar Technologies International, Agar, Hirawas, and produce, artistic, whatever, PAM. With a few smaller refineries like Sendas, Mediterranean, who can read Switzerland. These four major refineries are said to refine a significant portion of the world's gold, placing Switzerland at the center of the gold trade. Yes, we know. Swiss refineries are highly regarded for those rigorous quality standards and expertise in gold location. Most of these refineries are located in the southern canton of Ticino. So if you want to go on a vacation, go to Ticino, and maybe they'll drop a few gold bars for you. So they have 4, and 2 are having it. So there's still 2. Now, how long will they last? We don't know. What's the story? Why are only 2 out, not 4? But I would imagine the other 2 will be in trouble soon. But anyway, it's a start. I mean, I think things happen a little at a time, right? When the snowball comes down the mountain, becomes a big snowball. It starts as a little snowball, and then it gains and it gets bigger and bigger. So just the fact that 2 are out, the other 2 will probably be out soon. So understand the dynamics of the gold. It's not necessarily the COMEX paper pricing that we should be worried about. It went down to 28.80. Again, that's just bullshit. It's just people trying to buy more gold and trying to buy it cheap. So when they want to keep it low, when you want to buy it on sale, right? If I see a steak, I saw the 2 New York strips on sale. It was $10.99. I bought 2 of them. They're normally $15, $16. You make the price more affordable, then you sell them. That's why you make the price. That's why you put things on sale. And so the same thing here. So we will see. But brics, definitely buying the gold, definitely, China, Russia, India, still buying, Saudi. And then you've added 10 countries. So there's 19 now. They're all buying gold. And it's just, I think they go to Switzerland to refine it. Okay. Like the Chinese, the Russians, they want Chinese gold. So they take it to Swiss, and they might take, the UK gold and make it Chinese gold and make it Russian gold. So that's really what they're doing. But they ran out of the demand for we need Russian gold versus, well, we don't have any gold to make it Russian anymore or Chinese. So that's what they're doing. Anyway, we talked yesterday about fiat not being money, being debt, when it is money. Money is money. I mean, that's what it is. It's a medium of exchange. I mean, it's as simple as that. Sorry, I don't eat till 11:30ish. So that's what it is. So don't be fooled. Why is this money? Because I can go to the grocery store and go buy avocados, and I use this. So it's really a medium of exchange. It's just fiat money printed by a government, or it's printed by a bank, and it's you get your paycheck in it, and then you use it to buy goods and services, food, buy gold, put it in your bank, which you don't want to do. You got to be careful that the banks are going to go out. This is all related, right? They ran out of gold. Well, why is the demand so high for gold? Because everybody's getting out of the dollar because these idiots are inflating. You can't have a $36 trillion debt and ignore it. Now, is the U.S. buying gold to pay the debt? I doubt it. What they're doing now is using gold to pay off the derivatives, the COMEX. But That would be the only way to pay off the debt would be to go to a gold backed currency, to raise gold to 50,000 an ounce. Would you have to buy, you have to figure out 50,000 an ounce, so much gold, 36 trillion in paper monopoly money, and then go from there. And that's so, even at $50,000 an ounce, but what's the 50,000 worth? That keeps losing value. The dollar, people say like Bitcoin's not a store of value. The dollar, the euro, the yuan, none of those are store of values. Yeah, they're not. They're not really. What is a store of value? And I would say the only thing is gold and silver, where because you can't print it, you're not going to lose value in it. I mean, it's as simple as that. Because you can print the dollar, you change it, right? You change it from, well, we printed $1 million. Probably in 1971, you probably only had $5 million printed. Then it went to billion, and now it's trillion. And now you got caught with the petrodollar because you had to print a lot of dollars so the world could exchange their currency for dollars to buy oil. But now you don't. So now it all comes back, and that's really huge inflation. Please don't get fooled into thinking inflation is 2% or 3%. It's not. It's you can't, first of all, you can't count it as a percentage. So whoever's trying to do that scam on you, you got to ignore it. That's the government trying to calm the public so you don't buy gold and silver and you keep dollars. So as we say with The Rock, we do not smell what you're cooking, 2%, 3% inflation. It's nowhere close to that. It's at least 50%, but you really cannot measure it in prices, which is what they try to do. You measure it in how much money's been printed and how much value of that money has gone down. So when it takes you $6 to buy a can of tuna fish and it used to be $2, okay, but you really can't, that's really, if you really want to measure it by prices, you have to go back to 1971. And I got well, it's hard to use gold and silver. We can maybe use a car. Well, let's use Pepsi. Pepsi was a dime. It's now $3. That's your inflation, kind of. But with changes and competition, you can't even really use that. You just have to know that you've went from about, I don't know, $1 billion printed to 160 trillion. And you lose value on it. And you can't use gold. You think you could, but since these derivatives are there, we can use gold when we get rid of comex and we get to a free market. We can possibly do it with this card. This would be maybe the best way, but this goes back to 1981. So this card I bought for $100 in 1991. So it was probably, when it first came out, probably $2. All right. I buy it for 100 in 1991. If it's a 10, again, then this is a $100,000 card. So let's do inflation from the $1 in 1981 to the $100,000 now. That's a shitload of inflation. But is that a true way to measure it? Well, dollar fall that much, possibly. The demand go up that much, possibly. The fact it's got to be graded PSA 10, and there was no PSA 10 in 1981, change it. Yes. So it's really hard to do that with this card, but you could at least look at it. This went from $100 in 91 to 100,000 in 2025, or really 2023 was 100 grand. So did it go up? And did the Jordan rookie go up because of inflation or because of demand? And I think the Jordan also PSA 10 is not a realistic because once you started grading them and you got very few tens because the company that made these cards didn't really do a good job of quality control and making sure the centering was perfect, where every card the centering would be perfect, then everybody would have a PSA 10 Montana and Jordan and they wouldn't go up that much. So a lot of it is because they're limited. So it's really, so this is what I drive at in countering AI. There's no way AI could figure that out. I don't care what anybody says, programming AI, you couldn't program AI to come up with that. Look at all the variables I just gave you. So, how do we measure inflation? It's really the dollar losing value. And how do you really measure it? It's a very difficult thing. You have to have something that's consistent from 1971 to now. And it's not gold. Gold's consistent in its 1 ounce, but the price is not consistent. The price is based on derivatives, not free market. So that rules gold out. You can't say, oh, it's 3,000 now, it was 35. Well, that's at least how much inflation we had. That's the minimum, right? So it went from 35 to 3,000 is what? How many hundreds of percent? I mean, 70s 100%, 105's 200%. So it's a lot. Let me see if I can do the math. So we got 35, and we got. God, I hurt my hand. I did something to my hand up here. I don't know what I did, but it hurts like a mother. I put cayenne pepper on it. I'm gonna go put castor oil and ice on it in a minute. 35, and then it's let's call it 3,000 now. So I don't know if I divide 3,000 and 35 or 35 into 3,000. I can't. I'm not going to do it here. How many thousands of percent did it go up? And that'll be close to. That's a minimum amount of inflation we've had. And why people think you go year over year? Oh, look, Coke went from $1.50 to $3. Oh, inflation's bad. And then Coke doesn't raise their price. It's still $3. You go, oh, inflation's gone because Coke didn't raise their price. Well, that's again, the market's not allowing that. You got Pepsi and 7-Up and Dr. Pepper and Faygo. Coke can go to 10, but if Pepsi doesn't follow, Coke isn't going to sell their product and they're going to go out of business. Hence the problem with prices. So you can't really measure prices. The closest thing would be gold if it was free market. The Montana we can't because it's now PSA 10, which they didn't have in 81. It didn't have in 81, and then how much of a factor is PSA 10 pricing, making it $100,000 card? So again, it's not apples and apples. So you got to find something that 1981. I mean, maybe it's a pen. I don't know. It's just hard to use food as prices. Energy, I don't know. Gas has been held down. So a lot of this comex is keeping the price down. But why would you measure inflation year over year? It's the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. It really makes no sense. Then the government doesn't even include things that went up too much, or they include things that are price fixed. They won't put gas or utilities in it. What are they doing? So you got to be very careful there what they're doing and what they're measuring. How do you measure how much value the dollar's lost? Is a very good question. And the way they do it now is a very bad answer. To come up with 2%. Well, prices are, and then people believe it. This is the problem with people, right? They sit there and what do they say? Oh, inflation's down. It's only 2%. Really? And how did you come up with that? Well, that's what the CPI said. Oh, really? And how did they come up with that? It's a bunch of bullshit. Why are you measuring inflation year over year? You've got to measure inflation from 1971 to today. Why? Because this is the same money. You're printing more and more and more of it, making it worth less and less and less. So when you start is when you took us off of gold, because when you're on gold, and even then, you didn't keep it consistent. So if you had $1 million worth of gold, you printed $1 million. That's all you could have. But as we know, LBJ and Nixon printed more to pay for the wars because they didn't have enough money. And so they printed more to pay for the war. And then de Gaulle said, hey, you guys are, wait, you're devaluing your dollar. I want my gold. That's what really brought comex in, was to keep the price down because it's fixed. So even 1970, I don't know if you can start here in 1965. It doesn't really matter. You've got $160 trillion out there. It has no value. And as Egon says, well, it lost 99%. And I argue it lost 100%. But the stores have to keep it. They have to take it. You go to Kroger's, you got your groceries, you got to pay with money. There's no other way to pay. So that's what you have to do. So that's a big problem. So measuring inflation, I don't think is possible. Even if we try to do Montana, even if we try to do Rolex, maybe Rolex would be better. Something stable, maybe a Picasso. The problem is you run into different supply and different things that happen. So maybe if we looked at a 1971 Rolex and now we look at it today, maybe that's our cue. I'll try doing that. It's got to be something that this has changed because PSA 10. And that's changed the car. So if I looked at a 1971, I look at a Terry Bradshaw rookie card, not graded, and I look at it today, not graded. Maybe I could do that, but that's even a little bit the variable of the PSA 10. And then with the PSA 10, it skews the analysis. So it's got to be something that won't change because of grade. But you can't look at the regular Terry Bradshaw 71 and 71 Bradshaw today because people will pay for the PSA 10s, but the regular card, everybody's going for the graded card. So it throws that off. So it's got to be something, maybe a Rolex will be the only thing you can look at to actually figure out the inflation. But I don't know that you need to figure it out. I don't know what the point of it is. So if they say inflation's 2%, what's the point of it? Do you feel better that they haven't ruined the money completely? Why year over year? Does anybody ask that question besides me? And, is it supply and demand? Look at Switzerland's refineries. There's a shortage, so that's going to raise the price. So there's too many variables to really go, but what is the real point of it? What are you trying to measure inflation for? We have a $36 trillion debt, and everything costs more at the grocery store. So the money is worth less, although they'll try to make it sound like, oh, every item at the grocery store went up in price. All these companies raised their price. Well, we know that walking into the store, or we know houses cost more and cars cost more. We know that. We don't really need to. If I look at a car, it was $4,000 in 1971. Is now, let's say, 40,000 now. Maybe let's call it 40,000. But okay, but do we need to know the percentage? Right? 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28, 32, 36, 40. So it's gone up 900%, right? Because every time it went up from 4,000 to 8,000. So that's 900%. The price of the car went up. So that means, does that mean inflation's up 900%? Probably pretty close to it. Same thing with a house was 25,000, now let's say 500,000. So we can do our little 25, 50, there. Gold and silver, you really can't, because they're price fixed by JP Morgan in the derivative market to keep the price down. So you don't even know what the real market is. They don't do that with cars and houses. They don't keep the price down. The price is more free market. So that's really what you're looking for. So do we really care what inflation is percentage wise versus we know the money is worth less because everything costs more? That's the concept we need to know. But do we need to know it's 2%, especially when it's all bullshit? It's not 2%. So because it's not 2, do we really know what it is? And then why are you trying to tell us? You're trying to convince us like we're a bunch of fucking idiots. Oh, inflation's 2%. And then these guys do their little YouTube shows and, well, look, inflation's down to 2%. If you don't get that concept, you shouldn't be doing these shows, because then you're giving out false information to people. And that's not why we do this. I do this to tell you what's really going on. I don't do this to lie to you. And they are lying to you when they don't even ask the question, knowing you cannot possibly get inflation year over year is stupid. It's got to be since we got off of gold till now, it's probably close to at least 1,000%. So how does that help us? We know things cost more. We know the money's not worth anything. At the end of the day, we need new money. At the end of the day, all the BRICS countries are buying gold because they don't want to be in dollars, because they know they're worthless. Putin said it's like a Snickers bar. If Putin can figure it out, how come nobody else can? It's always amazing to me. Putin and Xi, they understand it. They're not Austrian economists. So what the hell? So the answer about inflation is we don't know what it is. It is not anywhere near 2%. And there's really nothing you can do with it. Anyway, you must understand the dollar's in trouble. You must understand you need to get out of the dollar, which you would have understood in 1971 when they took it off gold. All of a sudden, it's not backed by anything. It's worthless at that point. But people can't connect, because, well, this much dollar buys this much tuna fish. So once you understand that, you go to dinner and you can use the dollar because nobody really knows. But it was worthless back then. Now it's still worthless. But now people are now the prices are jumping up. So what Biden did for George Soros was basically kill the dollar, which is what George Soros wanted to do. He's probably got some gold. I don't know. I don't know how smart the man is, but this is where it's at. So we know we're in trouble with our dollar, and this is what I yell at. You've got to get out of it. You've got to get off the Titanic. It's your only hope. It's your only chance, because we need dollars to run an economy, right? You need something to get paid and something to use to buy things, to pay for food. How do you pay for food? Well, the only way you can pay for it is with some medium of exchange. They've tried tulips, they've tried cows, they've tried chickens. What did they do after Rome? Rome had gold and silver. Well, what did the other countries use? And then when Rome fell, because they took all the gold and silver out, they couldn't pay their armies. What did they use after that? They ain't using gold and silver. They don't have it. This is why the empire fell. You can't have the inflation, which is all these countries, for some reason, all the number one powers, they print their money to zero, but they don't understand that whole concept. They don't understand you can't print the money to zero. And that's where the gold comes in, because you can't print it. So when these guys say, well, gold's been around for 5,000 years and it's never failed, well, it's simple, because it's never been printed. It's, you found it, that's it. You can't print it, you can't counterfeit it. That's why gold keeps its value, very simply. Not because it's nature's money or the nature boy or anything like that. It's simply because you can't print it, you can't expand it, you can't expand the supply. The supply is this 200,000 tons, that's it. And you can't make it grow, therefore you can't inflate it, therefore it never loses its value. And that's where alligator gets into a little confusion of it keeps its value. Now, if there's, as I said with the football tickets, if there's more demand than there is supply, the price goes up. So don't say gold doesn't go up in price when it does. It is, like right now, it's going up because of demand, not because the dollar's losing value. Because seriously, the dollar has no value. So how can gold go to 3,000 from 2,500 if the dollar lost its value that it didn't have? And then why did it go down from 29.40 to 28.80 last week? Did the dollar get stronger? I don't think so. It can. So all these countries are in the same problem, except for the BRICS are smart enough. They've played my game and they found the professor, and I told them to get gold and silver. And that's, so they got gold and silver and they won the game. The US is, I don't know if they've kind of finally met me and kind of figured out we need gold. I don't know. But all these other countries, the Western European, Germany, Italy, France. Well, Germany, I know, has gold because of what happened in 1923. But the biggest factor is they don't know you can ruin the money. They just keep printing it, and then it goes, then nobody wants it. It's too much. Value goes out. It's a coincidence it happened to the French, the Romans, the Germans, the English. All these countries went gold, and then they got off of gold for some reason. And then they went out and they weren't the number one power. That's what happened to France and England, well, and Rome. We're doing the same thing. We had gold, like 1776. We started with Adam Smith and gold. That's how we started. That's how we grew. In 1971, we says, yeah, we're tired of growing. It's time to let somebody else take the gold and be the number one power, because we don't want it anymore, I guess. I don't know why you wouldn't want to be the number one power, but this is the problem. So you cannot measure inflation, and it's certainly not 2 or 3%, because again, it's printing the money, and you got another interest payment of another $1 trillion coming up. Well, you're going to print that money. You got to pay for the Social Security and Medicare and the defense, and that's more than the taxes you get in. And to even try to, you're not a company, and I think that's the first problem. It's, you know, if I'm a company, how much revenue am I bringing in? You know, I sell whiskey. I'm Canadian Club, right? So I sell this. How much do I sell it for? Can I sell it for? What's my cost to make it? But I'm going to get revenue. I'm going to sell the bottles. I'm going to bring in revenue, which is going to offset my cost, called net income, and I'm going to make money, because I'm going to bring in more revenue than I spend. But what is the revenue of a country? There isn't any. They don't sell anything. So therefore, it's all cost with no revenue. And then they try to tax us to get the revenue, which is totally illegal, not in the Constitution. There should not be income tax. So The problem with the central banks are they allow you to print more money than you should. So when we're on the gold standard till 1913, we didn't have taxes, we didn't have deficits, we didn't have any of this shit. We didn't pay a nickel in income tax. The Federal Reserve, what their problem is they print money and they make it worthless. So they print all this shit. Plus the banks, the fiduciary, the banks also with their ingenious, well, they're attached to the Federal Reserve. So the banks print, the banks do loans and then they go to the Federal Reserve, say, print us some money. These guys didn't pay their loans. So the Federal Reserve is the biggest villain of this whole thing because they will keep printing the money and they shouldn't be. There should be a limit and there should not be income tax. That's not how you get revenue. The way they did it in the 1700s, 1800s was it was part of trade. So we would trade our cotton to England and they would give us furs or whatever. And we would charge them a tariff like that. That's how the tariff worked. But it was, okay, we're going to give you all this cotton, you give us money. And that was sort of partly the way they brought in revenue because the people selling the cotton had to make money. So they sell it for 100 and then they owe 10 in tariff tax. But it was never the people being taxed, and the people shouldn't be taxed because the people spend the money much better than the government does. So you basically, by having a central bank, you allow the printing press to run, especially if it's a monopoly like JP Morgan's got. That's the problem with the central banks. And oh, by the way, every country has a central bank, which means every country's in the same position, over printing. And you can see every country's dollar is worthless, except for Zimbabwe's got it figured out. And now here comes BRICS going, yeah, we probably need to get gold and get rid of the central bank. So that's what they're doing. And that's the whole problem. So that's what the central banks bring you, is that problem. They bring you the inflation. Without that, there isn't inflation. Occasionally, if you have a war, you need money for the soldiers to feed them and the weapons and the artillery and stuff. But that's what you need. So that's where inflation comes from. And you can see things. You watch TV in the 60s. We watch Leave It to Beaver, and he goes to the movie with 10 cents. Now it's $10. Well, that's inflation. All right, so we know inflation should not be year over year and is not 2%. We know that. Just a second. Sorry, that was Daria. She's still sick. I thought she says I'm fine, and then she's really not fine. So somehow a tooth got here and it's on a nerve. I don't know how the tooth can come out and go under your cheek. I mean, or did it come in? Maybe it came in through her eye. Maybe it's not a tooth. Maybe it's a stone. If she was walking, it was a windy day, and it went in through her eye down there. That's the only thing I can think of. But Hopefully, she won't need surgery. She'll know Friday. Anyway, so the first thing is you must have the market create the pricing. It's got to be free market, which means I want to sell you, you want to buy it, we agree on a price. So I'm going to sell this to you for 100 grand. You go, yep, it's a PSA 10, 100 grand. I sell it, you buy it. That's free market. That's laissez-faire economics. We don't want the government or need it. We will control ourselves. I'm going to give you this card. Since it says PSA 10, you know it's a good card. You have confidence that it is graded, that you'll buy it because it is. I can say, well, this is a PSA 10, but it's not graded. So you're not going to believe it. And I wouldn't either. It looks pretty fucking good, but it might not be. It might come back as a 9, and there's a big price difference. So that's why you get them graded. But this is the problem. So the central bank is really JP Morgan, of course, and that's really the problem. JP Morgan then price fixes gold, which doesn't allow a free market. He's into monopolies, JP Morgan. So this is the problem. The central bank needs to be blown up. Income tax needs to be blown up. How do you pay for a war? You don't have them. Name one war that we needed. Revolutionary War, did we need to go to war over it? Probably not. The Civil War, we could have sat down at the table and the South said, look, we want to sell the cotton to Britain, and the North didn't want it. So let's negotiate. We'll give you 5% of our money, but you got to give us something, and it's all negotiable. So you could have avoided that war. World War I never should have happened. That was the Archbishop getting murdered by the Russians because they wanted a warm weather seaport. Well, you could have said, look, you can use our seaport. We'll charge you, right? Just like the Panama Canal. They go into the Black Sea to the Atlantic. That's Russia's problem. They don't have a warm weather seaport. So you could have said, well, go to Odessa, take the Black Sea, and then come around to the Atlantic, and you're fine. And they could have done that. So I don't know a war that really needed to happen. The Romans, they were always at war. I don't know why. Trying to protect their things, they could have just, I don't know, put up a wall or just negotiated with the Germans instead of always at war with the Germans. They probably could have done that. I don't really know the concept of the war. If I'm fighting with somebody, I'm fighting with the communist in the hot tub, let's say. Well, we don't need to go to war over it. We could either ignore them or solve our differences some other way, right? But you don't need to go to war. We will see. And if you only have so much money, how can you go to war? If you don't have money now, I can't go buy a house. I don't have money right now. I have enough for groceries, but I don't have much to buy a house, but I pay rent here. So it's a lot of that. You must figure that out. But there's always Stoic where you are strong, and most of the Stoics you don't go to war. You win without fighting is Stoic, right? So that's what needs to happen. So you get the wars, which cost a lot of money. Now, here the problem's been the defense contractors. Let's go to war so I can sell tanks and missiles and Tomahawk missiles and planes and all. So I want to sell my rifles and my ammunition and my tanks and planes and jets. So let's have a war. Don't the fuck? First of all, I don't even know. Okay, maybe we need them. How are we going to pay for them? We don't have money to buy a tank. Where's that money coming from? right? So that's the first problem. And then they want to have wars because that's what they're doing with the Ukraine. They want the wars to build the tanks to make money. We all watched Sherlock Holmes Part 2, The Wrath of Khan Part 2, whatever. I mean, they're fighting, right? And the guy goes, "Well, we're gonna give arms to both sides because we want to sell our arms." Now that's a problem that we need to figure out. Is I know you need an army to defend, but so you're going to make 50 tanks for us so we can defend our city or our country, or how many tanks we need, and that's it. It's a very complex thing because the wars then create the inflation because there's no revenue coming in unless you did what Hitler did, which was steal the gold. So this is the problem. Anyway, that's where the inflation comes from. Mostly the wars. Then what FDR did with Social Security was ridiculous. It's one thing if I keep my own money, I get my paycheck, I keep my money and I invest it. And maybe you give me, an account and you say, well, yeah, put your 5% in, and then when you go to retire, you'll have this money saved. If you're too stupid to go put your money in a retirement account or just put it in your bank. If you're too stupid to do that, we'll do it for you. But only, Professor, you're going to pay somebody else. Why? And this guy's going to pay you. No, because let me just keep my own money. Thank you very much. And that's another Ponzi scheme that FDR did. He did a lot of Ponzi schemes. And then taking the gold, what is that? That's not while you're in government. It's not to steal the money of the people. Now, he did pay you for it. So it went from 20 to 35 an ounce. And then if you came in and you said, I have 5 ounces of gold, you'd go to the bank and they would give you $35 for the 5 ounce, $35 per ounce. They would give it to you. So they never came into your house and took it. They didn't really confiscate it. They just said, we want to buy your gold and we'll give you $35 an ounce. And at the time it was 20, and at the time it was still price fixed, probably by JP Morgan. So the whole idea of money, the whole idea of government and money, it's a real bad situation. How does the government make money? Right? They don't. I mean, they can't take your taxes. That's bullshit. They can't charge you. They shouldn't be charging you income tax. Maybe a sales tax. Okay, you have money, you bought a boat, we want 2% or 5%. That would be the only way you could do it. But you're still taxing the citizens to pay for the government. And the problem now is you've made the government so big, and now you have this huge, massive debt, but you don't have revenue to pay it. Where are you getting the revenue from? You're not selling cars or toilet paper. You're not selling anything. So how are you getting money to pay for the debt? Well, we'll print it. Well, then you've caused inflation. So you can see the massive problems that government causes because they don't make revenue. So maybe we need a government that sells something and then can spend. So the government should make money to pay for the military and to keep the laws good. You want free trade. You want gold. So the taxes should be nothing. It should just be maybe sales tax. You got to balance the budget. Gold standard, free trade now, and the Constitution. But the thing is that we're missing is the government should be able to make money like a corporation. Maybe it should be a corporation. Maybe General Motors should be the government. This is what I do so well, think outside the box. So we need a company being the government, but using the Constitution as the rule book. So you can't get smart asses like Zuckerberg or Gates. Oh, I'll do it. And then they start controlling everything like they want to do it. No, you can't do that. You got to go with the Constitution. But the idea is it's something that makes revenue so they can pay the expenses. And you don't have that. And that's the problem, right? You don't have anybody paying. The whole theory of government is they're going to spend and tax to pay for what they spend. But the problem is there's no balance. There's no, well, wait a minute. Why do we need Homeland Security? Why do we need this? That's more spending. Where are you going to get the money to spend it? We'll tax everybody. That's not the answer. The answer is not taxing the income of people. That's totally unfair. That's going to kill your country. You've got to come up with a way of generating revenue as a government. So then we got Biden giving $600 billion to the Ukraine. What's this about? Where are you getting that money from? We're just printing it out of thin air. You can't print it out of thin air. That's what inflation is. You have to have a way of making revenue to pay for it. If the government actually had to create revenue, not with taxes, but selling a product, they couldn't do it. And it would also stop them from too much government. That's why you need limited government, because you only have so much to spend. And you can't print the money to spend it because you don't have a central bank. And it's backed by gold. So you only have so much, but the dollar never loses value because it's backed by gold. So you need a way of not necessarily taxing companies. I think taxing sales, sort of like tariffs, is the only thing to do. Sorry about that. So this is the general problem. And so what happens? The government doesn't make any revenue, and they think they can tax your income. So as they should. That's what the tariff was. Oh, you want our cotton? We're going to charge you 5% as a tariff to get our cotton. But the problem is you really want free trade, because if they sell us stuff, you really don't want to pay a tariff on all the stuff that comes from China. You want free trade. So it's a really difficult thing to how does the government make revenue? Because they can't do your taxes. And then what happens is then a war comes or defense or something happens and they print money. And then they start selling the bonds for money, which is what happened, right? They sell all the T-bills to China and Germany, and you run up a $36 trillion deficit because you're spending more than you have. What is that all about? Well, we've grown government too much. So that's like us buying 5 cars, and it's like, well, I can't afford 5 car payments. I mean, that's the problem. I shouldn't be buying more cars if I can't afford it. So why are we spending on defense? Why are we giving Ukraine $600 billion? Where's that money coming from? That's not prudent. You can't think a government is not like a regular business, not like us, right? You go to work, you make so much, you make 1,000 a week, you can spend 1,000 a week. Now you can either save part of it and buy gold with it or just spend it all. But that's all you got. You can only spend what you got. And then we get in trouble when we go credit card and we spend 2,000 even though we got 1,000. Now for us, it's okay. We can cut off partially and then start paying the credit cards down. But right now it's insanity from the government standpoint. They are totally, this is the problem when you don't have business people, right? So you've got, you know, you've got people in there that are just idiots. You've got Keynesian economists who think you should spend, who miss the whole point. I can only spend what I have. I have to show a break-even budget, or maybe I make money. And I've got to get out of the entitlements. Now, to me, Social Security, I paid into it. So if you're not going to pay me, I want a lump sum, $500,000 to get out, which is what I should have. If you didn't fuck around by making me pay all these other people's retirement, and then somebody's paying me. So this is the big problem. Medicare, why do you have Medicare? If you have a free market, then everything is paid for. If you want to stop working, stop working. If you've saved enough, stop working. But don't take money out of my paycheck to make it very, very hard for me to stop working. We call it Social Security, which is social, which is a joke. So the whole thing comes down to a free market. The whole thing comes down to you can't print money out of thin air. So you have money, and the company sells. You know, your GM, you sell a car, you get money in, and then you got to pay your expenses, and hopefully you're selling it at a high enough cost to cover a high enough price to cover the cost, and you make money. And now in there, you're paying your employees out, right? So they make money. Now the problem with the house should not be a loan. If I'm trying to sell a house for $500,000 and nobody has it, my price is too high, right? Just like this, just like my Canadian club. So if I sell this for $5,000 and people have to take out a loan to buy my Canadian club, I don't think so. And that's the biggest problem with houses and cars. They're selling them too expensively. This is the Ponzi scheme that the banks use on you. Oh, the Mercedes is 100,000. Well, if nobody can afford it, you got to lower your price, and that's what's happening to Tesla now. Nobody can afford it. So houses should not be 500,000, but nobody can afford it. Maybe you have a millionaire who, you know, Michael Jordan or some, you know, star, a sports star who made it. But in general, you those prices should not be there. A car should cost maybe 2,000 or 3,000, and if it costs more than that, then they go out of business. You need to get away from banks loaning money. Nothing. If it costs too much and for the market, you can't sell it. And this is where the big fault comes in. You want a house, 300 grand. No, the house shouldn't be more than maybe 10 grand. The house should be cheap because we can't afford 200 grand. And in a normal market, when you can't afford it, the price comes down. So I give you this. So here's the demand for a house. Let's say it's $5,000. And this is like the ribs, right? So we'll reverse it. So I'm willing to pay $30 for ribs, and you're pricing it at 45. You can't sell it. Well, I'm willing to pay you $5,000 for a house, and you're selling them for 20,000. I'm not going to buy it. If nobody would buy a house, they'd have to lower their price. But what happens? The banks interfere, and the banks say, you know what? We're going to loan you money so you can afford the house that you can't afford. So it'll be $300,000. We'll loan you a mortgage of 300. You pay us back in 30 years. So you basically broke for 30 years. And that's where you're at. And so it should never be an option that you could borrow the money to pay the house. It should be right here. I'm not going to borrow money to buy ribs. $30. You want to sell them for 45. It ain't going to happen. So at the house, you got to bring the cost down to $5,000. That's the problem. But through inflation, the value of the dollar is gone. So now to get the material and labor, I've got to charge you more. Now, I don't know that you need to charge over 100,000, but basically, maybe it should be 20,000. And so you would take out a loan. You would say to the builder, okay, I'm going to pay you 20 grand. I'm going to pay you over the next 5 years or something. The bank shouldn't create the money out of thin air, and the bank shouldn't be involved with it, really. You should pay the builder, and the builder cannot market 200,000 if the market is here. You're 200,000 and the market's here at maybe 10 or 15. That's what they should be selling for. There shouldn't be a bank. A bank should just be a place you store your money because you're worried about it getting stolen. But the bank printing money that's out of thin air is what fucks up everything, because then the value, they're also printing money that they don't have, which makes the money worthless. So the whole system is about using money and printing the money and devaluing the money. How do you get away from inflation? You can't. You can't do it the way it's set up with all this money printing. And I'll give you a loan for a house that you can't afford. Why is a house the only thing that, if I go to look at golf clubs and they're, $500, I buy a set, I got $500. But if it's $2,000 and I can't afford it, I'm not buying the golf set, right? Or tennis racket, or whatever it is. But why is a house or a car all of a sudden, well, I can't afford it, but I'm going to buy it anyway. I'm going to buy something I can't afford. Where did that come from? That's a huge problem with inflation, because the banks, I'll loan you the money. Yeah, you got a good job, you got a master's, you got good credit. I'll loan it to you because you're going to pay me back. But you don't have the money to loan me. You're not giving me money to loan it. You're just coming up with, I'll pay the builder 200,000 and then you pay me. I'll be the middleman. I make money out of nothing. What is that? Where did that come from? That's bullshit. Okay, I guess I won't pay my credit. I'll just come up with money. I'll just print money out of nothing and pay my credit card. That's why we need gold, because you can't print it. And therefore, you won't get into the trap of printing too much money and printing it out of thin air. You can't do that with gold. The system is totally made off because you're printing money that you don't have. And you're charging me interest on money you don't even have. And I got to pay for it for a price that, for an object I shouldn't be paying for, a house, because it's too expensive. The builder needs to build it cheaper. But as you keep printing money, what's happened? The cost went from 4,000. A house was 25,000 in 71, and now it's 500,000. Well, if you had gold, you could never have done that. Nor should you have done that. It should always be what I can afford. Like I say, if I can't buy a $10,000 car if I don't have the money, right? So it's got to be like, go to the grocery store. Well, that steak's $20 a pound. I'm not going to pay for it. I'm going to buy the $10 one. That's how a house should be. 300 grand's too much. And that would drive the builders to lower their price, because if they build something for 300 grand and nobody can afford it and nobody buys it, he's sitting on inventory that he can't use. So he must lower his price. So he must devise a way to build a house where the market's 10,000, 15,000. And then he's got to set up a way that he's going to loan you the money, because if he's stupid enough to make something that nobody can afford, you better have a way of helping you pay for it. So that's, so that would be, this is $75, let's say. Okay, so people can afford this, they buy it. Let's say I mark this $10,000. Well, nobody's going to buy it. Oh no, they're going to go to the bank and take out a loan. Yes, I'd like to take out a $10,000 loan because I want to buy a bottle of Canadian Club 12-year. Or they're going to go to Canadian Club and say, I'd like to buy the bottle, but I don't have the 10 grand. How about it? Can I pay you over 5 years? I'll pay you for it. That's why they don't make it for 10 grand, because nobody can afford it for 10 grand. So they're getting away. The banking system has gotten us away from the free market. It's gotten us away from, I'm willing to pay X and you're going to sell it. So it's not going to be like the Camry. I can afford 25. You're going to charge me 35, and there's no buyers here. So what did Camry do? They had to lower the price back down to about 26, and the people at 24, 25 went up to 26. So you got equilibrium. But how can you do that with a house that you charge 3, 4, 500,000 with? You can't. Nobody has that. A few people have the money, but are you trying to sell to the 1% who has the money, or the 98% that have money, have skills, and they can't afford that, but they can afford something a little cheaper? And that's really what should happen. You've gotten out of market, and then you're being assisted by the bank, pulling money out of thin air and fucking the money, as it's now all worthless because you printed too much of it. So if we go back to gold and you want to buy a house, and the house is $100,000, now the money would be backed by gold. So this is strictly, it's backed by gold, so you can't overprint it. And then we'll see what the demand is at $100,000. What will the price be? You're going to sell it for 100. Is there demanded? I'm sorry, I'm only going to pay 70 or 60,000 or whatever. And that comes down to what we're going to make in our salaries. So we can see the problems. The Federal Reserve just prints money. They tax us, which is totally illegal. It's not in the Constitution to tax. Hey, Real D, how are you? What are you looking for? I'm done with football. I haven't tried basketball. It seems too complex, but I might start looking at it. But anyway, how are you? I hope you're well. Are you buying your gold and silver? I hope so. So the problem is the government wants to spend more than their tax revenues. And how do they pay it back? Well, we'll print bonds, and the Russians and the Germans and the Chinese and the Japanese will buy them, and then we'll take that money. So the bonds aren't real. We'll take that money, and we're going to pay down. We're gonna that's how we'll spend more, because we've made the government too big. And this is the problem with big government. It costs too much. You don't have enough money to handle a big government. That's why the government's supposed to be small. This is how much. So it's like us. This is how much I can pay rent or mortgage, right? This is how much I can pay for groceries and electricity. And then I want to go on a trip, and so I budget it out, and this is how much I can spend on these things. That's it. Well, the government doesn't do that. The government doesn't say, hey, you know what? This is my tax revenue coming in, provided we don't have a recession, which I'm causing, and I'm not inflating the money, so the money's worthless. But they don't do that. Well, we need this department and that department and this, and we'll just print the money out of thin air, and then they wonder why there's inflation, and then they lie about it. Well, it's 2%. How in the world could it possibly be 2% when you spend so much more on government, and then there's the pensions and all these different programs? How do you not print more money? Which that's why they lie to you and say it's prices. When it's not, it's you've printed the money is the inflation, and that's the whole problem. So very important economic class today. Now you understand things. When they have big government, they can't afford it. When they have a $36 trillion debt, they can't afford it. Printing money out of thin air, you can't afford it. The whole game is retarded, right? Not only you can't afford it, it's all Ponzi scheme. Oh, you want a house? Well, we'll make up fake money for you, and then you pay us 8%. Well, why am I paying you anything for the money? I shouldn't be paying you 8%. You didn't have it. It's not like you had it and you're giving it to me. You're just making it up. So that's a whole Madoff right there. Well, we're going to charge you 7% because we're going to lend you money. No, I don't think so. I mean, why am I paying 7%? Well, what if you don't pay us? Then don't give me the loan, and I should be getting it from the builder. So that, and then the military is so expensive, and then you're handing out 600 billion to Ukraine or Israel. Where are you getting that money from? You don't have a surplus, so you don't have revenue in the first place. So you're printing this and you're printing that and you're printing this and you're printing that, pay for the wars, pay for Social Security, pay for the debt. You don't have the money. You just made it out of thin air, and then don't give me this bullshit that we don't have inflation, which is printing the money. That's what inflation is. You increase the money supply. But the Keynesians don't ever want to talk about it for some reason. And then when I say it, everybody looks at me and I'm like, fuck, that's what it is. That's the problem, but you don't want to listen. So that's getting back to gold and silver. You realize that this is worthless because they just printed it out of thin air. It has no value because you keep printing. You're printing way too much. That's the problem with using money not backed by anything. There is no value in it, right? This is a problem now. There's no value in this. Egon thinks there's 1%. I say there's no value. There hasn't been value since 1971 because it's not backed by anything. So everything you're holding in this is worthless, which includes Bitcoin, the banks, your stocks, real estate trust, your bonds, your annuities, any insurance things. Because it's all in paper, but if you just listen to what I just explained, the paper doesn't have a value. So you want to put your money in value. You want to put your money here. You want to put your money in Rolex. You want to put your money in Van Gogh over there. Or you want to put your money in gold and silver. Now, gold and silver, the difference is this is already run up. Rolex is 200,000 for a lot of them. This is already 100,000. This is already went free market. And then you go, well, why is gold 2,900? And everybody's trying to figure out, well, what's comex doing? That's not even the real price, comex. Comex is a bullshit price, right? It's derivative. It's the market price controlling it, not a free market. Montana's a free market. The free market says it's worth 100,000. That's what the market says. Rolex, same thing. I show you on eBay, 200, 300,000. That's what the market says. But the market's not talking gold. That's not what the market says. That's what the price fixing government says. So the government's trying to control the price. We all know it's much higher because, of course, I just gave you 100 reasons that there's no way the dollar's worth anything because they're not printing it. So that's the big problem. So that, in a nutshell, is what's happening. You have to understand the dollar has no value. How could it? They're spending it like crazy, but as you print more, you make the value less, hence inflation, not the basement. You debase coins. You don't debase paper. Again, I don't know. Are all these people this stupid? I guess they are. Not understanding what debasement. Oh, you debase the currency. No, only if it's gold. Only if it's Roman and it's gold, and you're taking the gold and silver out of it. It's the only type of debasement you can do. Not dollars. You're printing those. You're inflating them. And that's what it is. So the dollar has no value because it's been printed way too much. There's nothing supporting the value of it. And so your Bitcoin's going to go to zero because it's priced in dollars. When the dollar goes to zero, what's Bitcoin? And Bitcoin isn't even real. It's not backed by anything. Beware of this peg, which is supposedly has gold in a vault in London. I don't know what's this guy talking about. There's no gold in London. We just emptied it. So again, you must own the gold. It can't be paper. ETFs, forget about them. Get the fuck away. IRAs, get away. Stocks, good idea, but I would be afraid because when the market collapses, it's not like they're going to sell their Intel and Apple and Amazon and go, hey, let's go into Barrick Gold and Newmont Mining. No, that's not going to happen. They're going to, because that's not the reason of selling the stock, is not because the stock's going down. It's to get out of the U.S. money. So they're getting out of the stock to put their money in their whatever country they're from and buy gold and silver with it if they can find any. And it's just becoming very, from what I'm seeing here, it's very more and more difficult to find the gold and silver. And the price keeps going up. And that's why you don't look at comex, all the other stuff, the price going up because the dollar has no value because they keep printing it to death because the market's not working when they're trying to sell a house over market. It's like selling the ribs for 45. Well, I can only give you 30. Well, I'll tell you what, we'll give you a loan for $15. You can pay us $2 a month until you've paid off so you could eat your ribs at 45. And that's just not going to work. So we will see. But anyway, that is the problem. Tariffs are just a way to make things more expensive. I mean, if you replace income taxes with tariffs, again, the Great Depression was caused by the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act, and then everything FDR did with Keynes as his finance guy. But it's funny how many Keynesians there are now, knowing that caused the depression because you had Keynes as the financial treasurer in 1932, I believe. So why would you listen to this guy? What he does doesn't work. So that's a big problem also. So again, the Keynesians are easy because they can print money out of thin air and everybody can just, thinks they have money. So you think, well, I got $1 million, and you actually think that $1 million has value. It doesn't. You just have $1 million monopoly money or toilet paper, whatever you want to call it, of valueless paper because it's not backed by anything. This is not hard to understand. That's the problem. So if you're not backing it by gold, you're fucked. So therefore, you should have gold. And that's the problem. So again, the tariffs are going to raise prices that Trump thinks, well, that'll counter the taxes because the government's too big. So Trump's kind of getting in. He goes, well, we got to cut government because it's more than we get in revenue, right? So I can't afford it, and so I got to cut it. And everybody getting the worthless paper are crying, don't cut me, don't cut me. And this U.S. aid where they're giving money, this corrupt money to everybody. What are you guys doing? You can't do that. That's ridiculous. So you have a lot of problems there. But the biggest problem is the government is a cost center, not a profit center. So where I work at Mercedes, a cost center, IT is a cost center because we don't make revenue, but we are a cost. So we keep track of our costs. The people that sell The cars are the revenue part. Well, we make sales. Okay. And that's the difference. So that's what you have. And the government is a cost center. The government doesn't have any revenue. They try to tax us to get the revenue, but that doesn't work. And then how else are you going to get it? Well, we got sales tax, but the problem is all the income you get in, income tax and sales tax and all this. The problem is you kill your economy because you're pulling the money out of it and you're not getting enough money in to pay out all these expenses that you're having. So you have a government that spends 10, let's say 1 trillion, but your revenue or your tax revenue comes in as like 400 billion. So I think you got like a $1 or $2 trillion deficit. It might be higher because you're spending more than you're getting in, which doesn't work. So Trump wants to cut the government so we spend less, because you should never have gotten this big a government because it's not needed. The only thing you need is you need something with the laws. You need laws and a military. That's the only thing a government needs. And then you print the money. You have competition, and you print money that's backed by gold, and that should not cost you that much. And that's all you need, right? Just a legal system and a small military. Not all over the world, just protecting our borders. Shouldn't be in Europe. Shouldn't be in Africa, Asia. Should only be in the U.S. and just to protect our borders. That's what the Romans didn't go all over the place. They were all in Rome. They had a big empire. So it was very hard for them because they were so big and they had such a big army, and they were all, they were in Egypt, and they were in Turkey, and they were in all the way up to France, Greece. So they had a big, but it was all in Rome. It wasn't, they fought the Germanians, but that was at the border. They weren't in Germany protecting. So the fact that we've got this military all over, we can't afford it, nor should we have it. So we try to steal oil and steal gold and all this stuff. And it's not ours to take, which causes wars, which is costly, and you kill people, which is terrible. That's the whole problem with it. So we're in this quandam where we have to figure out how the government can actually sell a product. I mean, that's basically what we're saying is we'll let you be a business. So you generate income and not buy our income tax. And then you can spend up to where you generate. So if you bring in $1 trillion, you can spend $1 trillion. Otherwise, you can't spend 2 trillion. We don't have it. And we're not going to keep printing T-bills. And then people say, well, we just won't pay off the debt. Well, how are you going to get your money? You're spending more money than you have, right? You got $1 trillion, you want to spend 2. Where are you going to get it from if you don't do T-bills? Because once you default on it, who are you going to do T-bill? Who's going to trust they're going to get paid from you? And now nobody trusts you. They're all returning the T-bill saying, I want gold instead, because you got a $36 trillion debt. You're never going to pay it back. I'm never going to get paid back. So I don't want your T-bills. So now you can't even create T-bills to get money to pay for things because you don't have enough revenue coming in. And taxing us is not the answer, nor is it raising taxes is not the answer, because you get less tax revenue. I think it's sales tax should be it. And even that, I think it should be partly tariffs. And why don't you go try to make a product that you can actually sell? We have things here that we could sell, like oil or natural gas or any of that stuff should be what we sell. That's the key, not, all the stuff we create here, we should be selling. And that should be our revenue. And it shouldn't be taxes, because you're taking money out of the economy when you tax us, our income or our sales. The tariffs, okay, they don't really come out of the economy because they're added, but they're still driving prices up, and people will buy less because it costs more. There's really no way out. I think we need to sell our oil. Well, that's what Saudi Arabia does, right? They sell the oil to us or to wherever, and that's how they survive. They don't, they don't really have they just pump oil and sell it. Okay, but at least it's a product, right? We have a lot of products we could sell here, but we don't. I think the natural gas to Europe, we blew up the pipeline so they would be forced to buy our natural gas, and we marked it up. Just this, very rude what we did there. So that's what's going on. What else? So we know what inflation is, and we know it ain't 2%, and don't be fooled by that. You must realize your dollar's worthless, and you must realize you need gold and silver, and you must realize it's not a free market. It's priced by JP Morgan. It's totally illegal and needs to be stopped. And let's have a free market price of gold and silver like we do Montana cards and Rolex watches. It should be the same. You can't have, you got to have one market, not, well, the government will price fix this, but we'll have a free market in that. No. It's all free market. This is capitalism. But free market is not bad. Free market's good. It gives you the option. Well, I want the Montana rookie card PSA 10. It's going to be $100,000. So you know that going in. Well, okay, it's $100,000 for the Montana rookie. Do I want to buy it or not? But at least you know the price. So if you do want to buy it, it's worth $100,000. If it's price fixed, you don't know what it's worth. And that's what we have with gold right now. Here's the demand. Here's the price. The price is being held down, and we don't know what this is. We don't know what this price is. So they can't just raise this 2,900 to what? To meet the demand that people have for gold and silver. And so we both know they're way too cheap. Now, this is not the real price based on the demand, just like the football. So to talk about like the Super Bowl or these big football games, they're basically not selling the tickets at the right price. Something's wrong there. The tickets should not be $2,500. It should not be like $1,000 and then on the secondary market $45. They should be priced at market, so they should be sold for $4,500. Whatever that secondary market price is what they should be priced initially. Because now it's bullshit. Now there's ticket brokers buying them because they know they're going to make money on it, and that's a problem. That's not what you're selling. You should sell the ticket to the public, but this is the price because we know what the demand is, and that's all. This ticket price is bullshit, and that's really what you're trying to do. You're just trying to meet. It all comes back to what's the market, what's a free, fair market. This is what I'm going to pay for a steak. You market there, but at least I know if you're marketing the steak at $17, I know what I got to pay for it, and then it's up to me if I want to pay $17 or I want to buy something else. That's kind of what you have there. So a lot of that. What else? So this is why what they're calling de-dollarization is happening, because as I just explained, the dollar is worthless because they're printing it out of thin air and it's not backed by anything, so it has no value. So we understand that. So if you're in the dollar, you want to get out of the dollar, because I want to get into something that has value, not something that doesn't. Because then you're going to get made off. Well, we hate to tell you, but the dollar's not worth anything. Well, wow, big surprise. We didn't know that. So you're going to have $100,000 in the bank or $500,000 as these 401k people do. And the dollar collapses, the stock market collapses, and you now have zero. And I run around telling people, get out of the stocks, get out of the banks, buy gold and silver. And they look at me like I'm out of my mind. And I'm not out of my mind. I know exactly what's happening. That's why it frustrates me. So I sit there and say, okay, when you lose all your money, don't come crawling to me asking me for gold. And I tell that to people that don't want to listen and understand. I tell that to them. So I got a friend, and I tell them, okay, when your 401k goes to zero, don't ask me for gold because I'm not going to give it to you. I have told you what to do. I have said it for 2 years now. You've ignored me because you got a 401k and you don't think anything's wrong. You don't even understand the game. And this is the whole point. You don't understand. The dollar is not backed by anything. It's worthless. The value keeps going down and down because it's really zero. You're printing money out of thin air. Your deficit, your debt, you owe money that you don't have. Well, what are you going to do? And that's the problem. And that's the beauty of gold. Gold keeps going up. Eventually, comex will go away because they won't be able to hold it because the demand is too strong. As Pat's telling us, shortages are limiting gold bar production in Switzerland. Well, wait a minute, they don't have any gold, so now the price has to go up. And there goes the dollar. It takes more dollars to buy the gold. And then you're not going to the bank for a loan. So what happens if gold goes to 100,000 an ounce? You're going to go to the bank and say, yeah, I'd like a loan to buy 2 ounces of gold. I mean, basically, that's what you're saying. Right now, I buy gold with money I have. If I don't have the money, I don't buy the gold. And that's the difference. But that's why I warn people, you better buy gold because the dollar's collapsed. It's never really been. It's just the Ponzi scheme's been told that the dollar's has a value when it really hasn't. It's never had a value since probably 1913. Once they, well, let's say 1971, because once they got rid of gold, then the dollar wasn't backed by anything, and then that's it. So once the dollar's not backed by anything, you're really screwed. So anything else? Let's take another look at gold. It's 1 o'clock. I got 1 o'clock. I got 28.98. So it's roughly been between 29.02 and 28.98 for the since 10 o'clock. So we never had our 10 o'clock drop. For some reason, we had this strange drop at 1:30 in the morning from 29.03. So dropped $13, but then it immediately jumped back to 29.01. So I don't get, that's just a planned derivative where we're going to lower the price so you can do a call option. We'll lower the price for you to do the call option. So this is how corrupted this whole COMEX is. Silver 32.36 up 22 cents. Again, silver's worth at least $500 an ounce, if not more, because this doesn't make sense. They're keeping the price down on silver, but the dollar is worth silver's money. What are you doing? Oh, it's for industrial, so they can make solar panels. No, it doesn't work like that. You can't control the price of silver so you can make solar panels with it. No, not in the free market. In the free market, it's supply demand creates the price, and then if you can't use silver for Tomahawk missiles and solar panels, you use something else. So that's what we're at there. So anyway, I think that's it. Let's take a quick look at sports as we like to see it. Really suck without football on, right? I mean, I just watched movies yesterday. NFL. Way too early power rankings. Maybe Eagles are the next dynasty. It's a bunch of bullshit. It was a matchup that favored Philly because Kansas City was too stubborn to throw short. All they had to do was throw short. Kurt Warner said, I'd have eaten them alive because I would have just, they leave you the short zone and you just take it. But KC didn't want to do it. They said, we throw it 20 yards downfield. That's what we're going to do. That's like Darnell when Minnesota played Detroit. It was the same thing. He didn't take the short throws. He he waited and got sacked a bunch of times. NFL offseason previews 32 teams, needs, free agents, and more. Defense. Jason McCourtney to Aaron Rodgers. What are you playing for? Why does anybody play? For money. 7 more women come forward with claims against Tucker. He's the kicker for Baltimore. But you don't know if anything's real. You can't just go by what they say. They have to prove it. But if 7 are saying it, maybe he did it, maybe he didn't. You don't know. Headlines: 2 people shot at Eagles Super Bowl. Okay, so nothing's really changed. Yeah, nothing new. Kelsey's got till March 14th. So it's college football. Ohio State signed Matt Patricia. Are they out of their freaking minds? Oh my God. SEC Big Ten building momentum to further expand college football playoff to 14 or 16. It should be 16 teams because it's got to be a multiple of 8, and to give 4 buys is ridiculous. So it needs to be 16 teams, but it needs to be, you can't look at rankings. You've got to look at strength of schedule. Michigan should never have been in the playoff last year. And I don't think Ohio State or Penn State should have been in the playoff this year. Ohio State didn't beat anybody. They played 2 good teams and they lost both games. They beat Indiana, they lost to Michigan, and they lost to Oregon. They don't belong in the playoff. Any other year, they never would have been in it. Penn State didn't play anybody. And so you got a lot of teams like that. And then half the Big 12 got screwed, especially BYU, Kansas State should have been in there. I mean, that was a joke. Ghost moves impacting visit plans. Yeah, what else? Texas recruits react to departure of popular running coach. Who cares? Florida defensive coach Will Harris reportedly to leave Gators for the same position at another school. We don't care. He's not that good anyway. LSU lands a commit. Who cares? Ohio State, Matt Patricia, you got to be out of your mind. He sucked at New England. He went to the Lions and he sucked. And you see him and you go, we got to have him at Ohio State because. And if you think Ohio State's going to have a good defense next year, you're out of your mind. They had a good defense this year, but not this year. That's about it. Not much there. Let's look at the NBA. Oh, they got the All-Star game going on. Team Chuck against Team Shaq. I guess that's Barkley. Who gives a shit? The Stars are ruining the NBA All-Star game. Well, my biggest thing is this Manning crap. I don't like Peyton Manning at all. I think he's an idiot. But I certainly don't like I don't need to see him in the All-Star game. And where did the All-Star game go? You're playing flag football. Again, we don't want to get anybody hurt. You're playing football. What do you mean you don't want to get people hurt? You take away the kickoff, which is ridiculous. You take away the onside kick. I couldn't believe you could only do an onside kick in the 4th quarter. Well, who came up with that idiot rule? So we need the kickoff back in. We need this tush push taken out because you're not supposed to be pushed in. It's got to be your own effort. It's like baseball where the guy in the 10th inning starts the second. No, you got to hit your way on. You can't just get second. And you can't do that. It's the same thing here. You cannot just give somebody, we'll give you the ball at the 30, kickoff in the end zone. I mean, well, what is that? That's not football. This push. No. He's got to get in on himself. You can't push him in. That's absolutely ridiculous. I don't get it. It's a terrible play. It's not football. Lombardi would roll over in his grave if he saw that, but he probably would be the one who could figure it out. But it's just really stupid. Uh, it kills the integrity of the game because the quarterback. You want to do a quarterback sneak, go do it, but you're not getting pushed. That's absolutely ridiculous. So just a lot of the stuff in the NFL are just ridiculous. The Redskins, well, we got to call them the Washington football team, but we'll let the Chiefs slide. Um, like I didn't know Indian names were such a terrible thing, right? And they're not derogatory. The Chiefs, it's a chief. The Redskins, okay, that's the Redskin. That's a type of Indian. What's the problem? Um, anyway, it's just ridiculous. For 80 years, nobody cared that they had Indian names on it. The Chippewas here, Central Michigan. Now it's called something else. What's the problem? It's advertising for the Redskins and the Chippewas and the Chiefs and the Cleveland Indians. Oh my God, you're hurting the Indians. Oh my God, it's just so stupid. Anyway, that's about it. So not much going on in sports right now. Again, these all-star games have lost their minds. They can't even have a real game. And what is that? You can't play a football game. We don't want to get anybody hurt. Then go play tennis. Stop playing football if you're afraid to get hurt. And in college, it's the same shit. Well, I'm getting ready for the draft, so I don't want to get injured. Well, then I'm not. I would never draft anybody that opted out. I wouldn't draft because they don't want to really play. They just are afraid of getting hurt, and that's not going to pass. Anyway, so that's about it. Applying for jobs, waiting to hear. Got my goal, just waiting for that to go up, and off we go. And that's about it. So I'm not traveling. We're waiting for the war to end, and then we'll see what to do. But we will meet as soon as the war is over, which, from what I hear with Trump and Putin, they want to end it. Trump probably he probably it's a financial thing. So Putin, wars are expensive, as we say. The problem with the war, as I spoke earlier, you got to pay for the weapons and the bullets and the men and the supplies and everything else, the jets and everything in a war is very expensive. So you got to pay all that, and there's no revenue unless you're Hitler and you stole the gold from everybody. There's really no revenue in a war, and that's the biggest problem. And that's the problem with it. So it's a big cost. Where you get the money from? No, you don't. You can't. Maybe you could sell bonds to get the money if the people want you in the war, and things like that. But that's it. So you got to be careful with that. Anyway, we got about 5 more inches of snow Sunday. I don't think it doesn't look like we got any more snow last night. I'll go out to the gym and do my pool, and that's about it. So www.teaserking.com. You want to get a hold of me? Anyway, this was a real good class. I think you have a better flavor of what really happens with the government doesn't produce revenue, and the inflation is much higher. Why is it year over year? It's really from 1971. Now inflation's 1,000%. I mean that's what you really should take out of it. Well, look at gold, $35. I'm going to do that calculation. 70, 105. It's probably 50 times. That's your inflation number, right? Not last year to this year, but it's just the dollar is worthless, and they're spending more than they have. So how is that good? How is that 2%? And where does that come from? Well, we're going to do year over year. No. Sorry, that's idiotic. That's Keynes talking. You can't do year over year. So anyway, that's really what the problem is. Well, anyway, have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you tomorrow. We'll see what's happening, but time for lunch and then off to that. My avocado and my pita are not, they're just kind of like an appetizer or breakfast time because I haven't eaten before 11:30. But now I'm a little hungry and I got to go work out. So I'm going to go. I don't know. I got chicken I got to cook, and then I can make an omelet. I cut up onions, and I got to get my veggies today at the grocery store. All right. Well, have a good day, everybody. And the dollar's gone. It's not maybe. It's not. I guess it's a fact. So to protect yourself, as Egon always says, wealth preservation, you buy gold because they can't print it. Or you get the Montana rookie card or the Rolex, things that can't be printed. And that's what you do. That'll keep you fine. But you buy gold and silver because it's actually money. So even if this is 100,000, even if I did it, I'm smart. I still, to get money, I have to sell this to get money to go eat. I can't take this to the grocery store, as Bobby's kids like to say. So that's the whole key there. Anyway, Bobby, Luke, I hope you guys are well. And everybody else, take care. All right. Have a good day, everybody. www.teaserking.com.